beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Doors. Prepare for Prattle.
Well, Danny boy, them plates they are calling. From glen to glen, went down the mountainside. That summer's gone, when all the roses are falling. Dead you must go, this you must go, but I must buy.
Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan. And in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to Danny B Movies, where my guest and I introduce or reintroduce the world at large to a cult film. And welcome to the world of tomorrow, as we go flying into some retro-futurist, steampunk, reference-heavy action-adventure from the early 2000s, with really the first use of blue screen backgrounds in its entirety. Completely brand new technology and using it at its utmost, to its utmost potential. And I have a man here who suggested that film. Not only did he suggest that film, he suggested many other things, but this one is what the patrons picked. Again, 2024 is for the patrons, and they picked this one, and Tony Farina is going to be my co-pilot as we fly into the world of tomorrow.
Oh, I love that introduction. Does that make me the Dex of this podcast? Amazing.
You're definitely the better, well, maybe not better educated, but the smart. Maybe more intelligent,
I don't know about
smarter, better educated. More verbose, better.
But I mean, if I'm your co-pilot, I mean, that's the thing. Sky Captain has multiple sidekicks in this, but I feel like his real sidekick is Dex, is the Giovanni.
Yeah.
And I feel
he's the man in the chair, isn't he?
He's the man in the chair. I've been a fan of him. He's in a lot of things. Giovanni's one of those guys who shows up in things. He's the original drummer in Tom Hanks' beautifully made film, That Thing You Do. He's the drummer who breaks his arm, which is the catalyst for the whole picture. He's great. I think he's just always fun. And honestly, when I sat down to watch it, this is the thing. I forgot it was him. Like, this movie has got so much going on. You're like fourth billing. I totally forgot. And he really is third billing. But because Gwyneth Paltrow's in it, Angelina Jolie's in it, she's listed as third. Yeah.
True. To be fair, like, I would also list Angelina Jolie as third in this, you know.
But
really.
He's in it way more.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's one of my problems with the film, is that Angelina Jolie has such a small amount of screen time. I was like, I love this character. I love everything. It's all Nick Fury. Yeah, it's English. Yeah, it's naval. I love it. You know, underwater dogfights. Give me more
underwater
of this.
Dogfights. Son of a bitch. That is amazing, right? No, she's boss. Right. Angelina Jolie is boss in this. Francesca. Yeah, she's spectacular. No, I agree. We definitely needed more her.
Just the outfit, the character design, everything about that. Just, I loved it. Just, I was like, more of this, please. Not that I'm not enjoying the rest of the film, but when I'm going to be very upfront about this. I'm not a fan of Gwyneth Paltrow.
That's fine.
The person, I think she's a serviceable actress. Don't get me wrong, but I think her, you know, the last few years she's gone mental. You know, making, you know, candles that smell like her own vagina, injuring people during skiing holidays, being sued, and then going, "Oh, I lost out on 2 days of skiing because of this," and you know, all the other horrible things. You know, lying about her company and all the other stuff that she does. I'm just not a fan of her. She claimed to have metal in some of the products that were, you know, used in space, and NASA turned around and said, "No, you're lying. That we would never this. We would never give you that stuff." I'm not a big fan of her, but I can appreciate her as a performer. But yeah, just so part of me was like, really wish it was just Angelina Jolie for most of this film.
I hear all of that. I hear it all. Now, all of that is true. And it's funny because Lee and I are big fans of her mother, who's spectacular, still killing it. Blythe Danner is still amazing. She's great. Everything she's in, she's so charming. She commands the screen. Like whatever she's in, you're like, she's awesome. I can't even think what she did. Some movie not that long ago with her. She and Sam Elliott kind of have a thing. And you're like, that is. Look at them. Look at those people. That's what getting old gracefully looks like. Look at them. Like just great. Like she's amazing. I'm a big fan of her. But every time we see Blythe, we're like, I wonder how she's handled it. Because it's almost like when her dad died. That's when Gwyneth started to go. Turn the corner to Cuckoo Town. So I don't know if like she's got some unresolved stuff. Everything you say is true. Now, like the thing is with her though, is she does everything you say. Some of those are horrible things. Yeah. She's not a villain though. She may be a capitalist monster who's manipulating people out of their well-earned money to buy garbage they don't need. But that is the capitalism world in which we live. And she's true. kind of a marketing genius for doing it, right? I mean,
Don't get me wrong.
I'm not a fan of her as a person either, and I don't even think she's the best. She's definitely the 6th best actor in this film. But I look at her as a kook more than a villain.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
I agree.
And
yeah,
I don't,
so
like Angelina Jolie, also a bit of a kook.
Yeah, she's not malicious or out and out evil or corrupt. I would say, but I think she's a bit out of her depth maybe, and sometimes
100%.
Not one for saying the right thing when you need to. Like there was an article as well on Twitter that came up, and it was like again very much promoting her and her Goops, and again terrible business name, but Goop and her alternative therapies and whatever you want to call it. But the article was like, Gwyneth Paltrow hit her rock bottom during COVID. She ate some bread. And there was a comment not long after that. And it says, what was the worst thing that happened to you during COVID? And a guy responded, he went, my mum died and I lost my job. And I was just like, just get some perspective. Like, just come down from cloud 9 for 2 minutes and just think about other people and stop naming your children after fruit.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing is because they named their kid, they gave their kid Chris's last name, which is Martin. So that's like, so you could name your kid even Blythe. You could name her after her grandmother, and she could just blend into the world. I mean, yes, she looks very much like her mother, so she's gonna, it's like you look like Gwyneth Paltrow, and your name is Blythe. That's weird, but like at least you could kind of blend in to the world. Do you know what I mean? But like the Reynoldses, Blake and Ryan, they named their kids names. Do you know what I mean? Like
exactly,
they could just blend in, because Ryan and Blake both have 2-way names, so they've named other kids 2-way names. And I get that. I think that's awesome, great. But there's definitely more than one, James Reynolds out there. So
I mean, there are worse celebrity children's names out there, like Zowie Bowie.
That is true. That is why he goes by Joan.
Exactly.
There's a reason he goes by his dad's real last name, which of course David couldn't go by David Jones because Davy Jones already existed.
True. Yeah, fair point.
Because he was a child actor. Everybody forgets Davy Jones. We're not here to talk about the monkeys. Sorry.
We're not. Sorry. Yeah, we are. There was a Davy Jones. There was a Davy Jones locker. There was too many Davy Joneses going on. But we are here. I'm sorry, I took us on a.
No, I was here for it. I was here
on a hate tangent on Gwyneth Paltrow. But again, I'm with you, Tony. I don't think she's the villain in the capitalist nightmare that we live in quite so much as I'm making her out to be. But we are here to talk.
She's not great. She's not great.
No, she's not great. She can do better. She could do better, I think.
Correct.
As a person, as a businesswoman, as a influencer of society in the world at large. But we are here to talk not about the present day. We're here to talk about the past and the future. So let's hear, why did you want to talk about Sky Captain and the world of tomorrow?
Dude, okay. So many things to say. Where to begin? I love art. I don't know if you know that about me, Spider Dan. I love art. I love it so much, and it makes me so happy. And I like somebody taking a risk. I like somebody saying, balls out. Here we go, right? There's a line, I don't know if you watched Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but every time before she goes on stage, she and Susie, her manager, they say tits up. And it's like they're just going out there. That's what this movie is. Balls out, tits up. It's the whole thing. It is this thing. So I didn't see it when it came out. This is its 20th anniversary, Dan, this year, September of this year.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that something? So when this came out, I was just getting divorced, and so I didn't see it in the theater. but I did get it. I got it on DVD, watched it at home, and sat alone in my living room one night. Probably it would have been early 2005 by the time it was out, because this came out in September. So probably like you're talking January 2005 or whatever. And I saw the ads and I was like, I want that. I want whatever that is. Man, I was so excited by everything about it. Like this thing, look at this. Look at this crazy bananas. This was risky. This was risky for all of them. Like people think Jude Law's turn in Ripley was risky, and Jude Law's, having his dong out on stage was risky. No, those are just things actors do. This movie was like, this was a choice. He was like, I'm going to do this. And same with Gwyneth, same with Angelina. They were all on. I mean, Giovanni's like, I want to be in a movie. Sure. And like Gambon, he could do whatever. He was at the stage of his career where he's like, I'm going to make this wacky movie. You know what I mean? So like, but these three actors were on the come up. They put themselves in risk, their entire careers at risk for this movie. It's not like some of the other, they've all made interesting career risky movies. Like she made the movie that her dad, Gwyneth Paltrow, made the movie that her dad directed, Duets, which was actually quite good. I really liked that movie about karaoke. I don't know if you saw that. That was quite good. They did these other different movies, like Angelina Jolie did, she did some weird shit. And obviously Jude Law has done did the repo. What's the one with the repo? That was later where they did the repo, where he has to go get the organs and stuff. They all tried different things, but this movie made no sense. The guy who made it, totally a nobody. Right? Like he was not anybody had heard of. And I sat down and I saw this movie, 2005, and was like, look at this. Look at this thing trying something. This is an artist putting everything out there, having partners, having these three names, up and coming actors, but everybody knew who they were, trying something. And it was destined to fail because people saw it and were like, what the hell was that? I even remember reading an article from Jude Law. I don't remember what it was, what he was promoting. And the interview even said, oh, since we've got time at the end of the interview, I want to talk about Sky Captain. And he's like, yeah. He's like, what the hell was that? Like, that's even what the reporter asked him. Like, what the hell was that? And he was like, he was proud of it. Jude Law is the producer of this film. He's a co-producer of this film. So I just saw these people trying to do something original and different. And at a time, even now, Dan, 20 years later, things that are risky don't get made. If it's not a redo and a redo and a redo and a redo. I mean, one of Angelina Jolie's greatest films, Salt, was a standalone, amazing action thriller bomb. That movie's so good. I mean, I love that movie. She's exceptional. But what do people want her in? They want her in Wanted, which again, Wanted was fine. But again, it's a comic book property. I like that movie. It's fine. It's fine. But she's so much better in Salt. Right? They want her in Tomb Raider, but okay. And she did it. She'll give you what you want, but also she wants to do this crazy shit. And so it was so good. And I didn't realize how well it stood up. So that is why I wanted to talk about it, because it is artists taking risks, doing amazing things, having something to say too. In a weird steampunky futuristic movie, they had something to say too. And it is the most comic book movie ever. That isn't based on a comic book at all, but it is the most comic book movie. You can feel it. So that's me. So what's your history with this? Sorry, I went off. I went off one. Dan. I went off on one.
No, that's great. I loved all of that, Tony. I love your passion, and again, this podcast is all about bold, risky things. Yeah, sometimes they don't pay off, but that's what I like to look at. I'm like, did you try something? Did it work? No, but at least you gave it your best shot. And again, some of these films are wildly offensive. Some of them are, I tend not to go for the safe stuff, the easy stuff. I love, attempting to say something about something. Do it, give it your all, go for it. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think you are right. This does do a lot of things, and I think it reminds me a lot of Avatar. Which also stars Giovanni Ribisi. So
I've never seen the Avatars.
Have you not?
No, I've not.
Okay. I think it does have, again, I'm absolutely in with what you are saying about this film. I don't think I like it as much as you do, but I appreciate it for what it is and what it's trying to do and what it's trying to say. But it is a little bit, for me, a bit like Avatar because, and again, didn't come very long after, 2009, I think was Avatar, so it wasn't that long after this that it came, and it was probably using the exact same technology that, Sky Captain and all the other films at the time were pioneering. You don't get your Avatar without Sky Captain. You don't get your Sin City without Sky Captain. You don't get most Marvel films all the Star Wars, the Mandalorian, all that technology is there and being worked on at that time. Groundbreaking, avant-garde, whatever you want to call it. It was happening here on that film. The reason I compare it to Avatar is it has very well-worn tropes, and it's a very simple story. The characters are just strong enough to carry you through the plot, but it's not about that. It is about the technology and the visuals and the imagination. Look at what we can do. Look at what we can accomplish with this brand new technology. I'm a big fan of the Beowulf movie as well, and that was kind of very motion capture heavy. Does it entirely hold up? Does it entirely work in regards to the technology? No, but I think the story is there and the acting is there, carries you through. But
Angelina's in that.
Angelina's in that as well.
She's Grendel's mom, right? Yeah,
she is Grendel's mom, and that film I think is taking a lot of risks as well, and I love it. And again, not going to be everyone's favorite. It's not going to work for everybody, but it's it's got a Neil Gaiman script, and again, the quality. Robert Zemeckis. It's not Polar Express. It's not the Uncanny Valley of those weird and scary kids, but there's something there.
Those weird and scary kids. It's very and we talked about this, Scott and Julian and I just talked about this, Scanner Darkly.
Yes, yeah,
right.
Exactly.
One Philip Dick movie that is the most like a Philip Dick novel, and it fit. Right. We talked about when we did Running Man, or when we did
They Live,
Total Recall.
Sorry.
Yeah. That like we talked about why Philip Dick books alter into these action adventure movies when the books aren't actiony or adventure-y at all. And as we came to realize, and Julian pointed out, is like, well, Philip Dick was mentally ill, and he wrote about that anxiety and that stress, and so that got me thinking, like, great, well, what's the one movie that totally captured it? Scanner Darkly. And what's the movie that totally Scanner Darkly, right? They're like, and that movie isn't, but it does the same thing. It uses, and again, Scanner Darkly without this. Exactly. Like you're saying, like that.
Exactly.
That's less Uncanny Valley. Polar Express was too far ahead of its time. I bet Zemeckis would love a chance to go back and redo that.
Well, I think they announced they're doing a sequel. So
so it'll be less scary.
Yeah, so it'll be less like, oh my God, those children, they're looking into my soul.
What's happening? Yeah, that's okay. Fair.
But again, that. Does it all hold up? No, but they were trying something. They were taking a risk. They were going for it. Yes, it doesn't, fire on all cylinders, but I appreciate. I like looking at the failures more than I like looking at the successes, because there's not as much interesting there's not as much to talk about with a success. There's more to talk about failure. When you are telling a story, nobody wants to hear a story that goes, and everything worked out fine. Nobody wants that. You want a story that is getting worse and worse. All of my best anecdotes are the things that I look back at the time, absolutely horrific, horrible stuff going on. But to look back and tell it, it's hilarious. There's a lot of tragedy and comedy and vice versa, but that is why I tell those stories, and that's why they work the best when you are telling.
People love a nut punch.
Exactly, like, and it's it's relatable. Yet you're like, how do you end up like? My friends are like, why don't you write a book about all these situations you get into? How does it happen? And I was like, don't ask me, but it's this is why I tell them, because they're funny and they're entertaining, and they entertain me as well. But if I go, oh, I did a test and I got top marks, it's not interesting, it's boring, there's no peril. I just I went into a test, maybe I was going to fail, but I didn't. Oh, great. Yeah, cool story, bro. Moving on. And that's why I like to look at these kind of like when me and Jack were looking at Sorcerer or Cannibal Holocaust, again, full on, absolutely, it's not for everybody. Visitor Q, definitely not for everybody, but they make for the more interesting discussion for me. And that's why I'm glad you brought this to the table, because there is something to this, even though, again, it was not as successful as they wanted it to be. They wanted to do more. They wanted to do spin-offs and cartoons and toys and books and everything. Kerry and Kevin Conran. Is it Conran?
Conran, yep. Yeah, and if you are you going to link to Paul's show, because Paul interviewed him.
Well, Tony, I was listening to it just before we started.
Nice, it's such a great interview, isn't it? I've listened to it a couple of times. It's so great. You could hear how happy Paul was. Paul was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, I can't believe
Yeah,
I'm talking to Kevin Conrad."
this is so cool. But no, I related to a lot of his stories, and
Yeah.
his struggle with being an artist, and having his vision filtered through several studio executives and different, and all the other bullshit he's had to fight to get his vision out there, and the struggle to coming back to it and returning to it. It was really an interesting and really good interview. Paul's amazing. I love his show. I hope he comes back and does more, because I think he's a quality interviewer, and he lets people like you and me babble without interrupting incessantly, and I think that's a real sign of somebody who's good at podcasting, someone who can kind of just sit back and is like, it's not about me, it's about the guest. Speaking of the guest, Tony, tell me more, because I've been babbling for a bit. So
no, it's all good. This is what we do. Okay, so let me say a few things to what you said there. So in that interview, Terry admitted they wanted $3 million. And then the studio was like, what if we gave you 70 million? And they're like, no. And that's what happened. And they spent 7 years, he and his brother spent 7 years working on, with 100 people in some weird back studio somewhere, working on his $3 million picture. He did all of the art by hand. All of the costume design was him. He did all of that, Terry. So, and then Jude Law comes in, and Jude Law is given, he's a producer credit. Now, whether he's a producer, like Margot Robbie was really the producer of Barbie, and you can see her stank all over it in a good way, or is he a producer like, this is the way to get Jude Law in this movie, is we'll give him a producer credit? I don't know. But like, once you start adding the names, and you somehow get the Laurence Olivier footage, when you start which I think is really, I bet you that was spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But I almost wonder if that was always part of it. Like, they managed to get hold of that because public domain, because that's old Laurence Olivier. So even in 2004, that was probably some public domain stuff. So I think they might have been able to get away with that. And I appreciated, like, today, Dan, they would have AI'd Laurence Olivier,
it would
instead of just use the archive footage.
Yeah, it would have been a deep fake. But this is another thing. Like with this film, I think all the positives that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Also, I think there are some negatives that we become maybe over reliant on the blue screen. Like, there's how many X-Men films have we seen where it's just put them against a blue screen? Magneto's just floating there in the middle of Egypt, and he looks bored as hell. And then also I have an issue myself personally, don't know about anybody else, but reusing dead actors' footage or creating new AI content out of previous existing information, I have an issue with it. I find it kind of maudlin and morbid. I wouldn't say it's sickening, but I have an issue with it.
I understand that, and that was part of the new agreement of not being able to do that. But again, at the time, and
don't get me wrong,
was part of and I assume at the time that was part of the original vision of why they could do it for so cheap, because they bought that footage. They bought it. He did none of this. Is like, so somebody agreed. Somebody in the
I understand that, obviously families will agree and things will,
they were all above, but I think that was part of the cheap. Like, my guess was this was supposed to be a very like Ed Wood thing, like, how Bela Lugosi was top billing, and Bela Lugosi's in it for like 8 seconds because it was like some footage. So I always felt like, but that was real footage.
That's a very Ed Wood thing. That right, absolutely.
But that's what I felt like. That's my read on this, is that's there, because like you said, this is acknowledging other things. So I felt using the Laurence Olivier footage was an Ed Wood thing. It's like, we've got this, we can get it, we can pay for it, we can get the permission, let's stick it in there. Yeah. I think if they didn't have Jude Law, Gwyneth Paltrow, Angelina Jolie above the fold, Laurence Olivier would have been top billed in this movie. I think that would have been the joke as the nod to the Ed Wood thing. So I just think what this movie does is loves what it loves.
Yes.
And it is unabashedly in love with this. It says, let's have silly fun. Now, and 2004, you think that's modern, but it's not. And we know that. So there is some air quotes. And again, because this is a steampunk thing, you always have to play around like, well, it's steampunk, so we've got talking robots and submarines, but we're a bunch of white people. So there are two people of color in the cast. Bai Ling, obviously, big fan of her. We've seen her across things. She's obviously in the Crank sequel, and she's in Jack and I've covered her on. She's in Southland Tales.
Yeah, we did.
She's in,
Me, Tonya, and Ria did The Crow, and
she's in The Crow, and I did The Crow with I did the comic with Chris, and
with
then
Chris,
Chris and Dave did the movie. Yeah, she's in The Crow. She's great in The Crow.
I interviewed her as well for Malta Comic Con, but my
that's the one that got lost.
Yeah, the battery died. Yeah. Wonderful interview, great, she's so unique,
great. And she's amazing in this. And what a because she doesn't talk, and so that's always an interesting. And again, that's a love letter to people you have to Anthony Daniels, right? You have mimes play the robots.
Yes, yeah.
Right. I mean, like, and of course that is Anthony Daniels' voice as C-3PO. That's him speaking, but the way that you move, and so there's again. So I just like that this knew what it was. It knew what its influences were, but it was also creating something else. So I've got a million things to ask you about. So one of the things I wanted to know,
Tony, as always.
How do you? So I'll start with the basic one. What is your thought on steampunk? Are you pro steampunk or anti steampunk as an art form?
I don't think I have a strong opinion either way. I think I will be honest, I've not gone deep into it. I've not delved into it. I'm not part of that culture, but I don't have anything against it. I've seen some really cool designs and some kind of, again, that retro-futurism idea I quite like. I'm a big fan of well, we're going to talk about influences on this. So I'm a big fan of, like, again, Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, which have been clearly influenced by, like, the original Max Fleischer, Superman. Like, the second I saw the robots, I went, oh, Max Fleischer, Superman.
He said so out loud. He admitted it too. He's like, duh.
I was like, but yeah, and I went in with this film. I think I was talking about it earlier, but I never saw it at the time. But I saw the adverts and I went, this is interesting. Like, this catches my imagination, my eye. But for whatever reason, I never saw it. I can't remember why or what I was doing. I was coming out of high school, going into college. So yeah, so I'm not sure there was a lot going on at that time for me, I think.
It would have been a risk too. I mean, this was a very, and not that you weren't a nerd then, you're a nerd now, but it's a very nerdy movie. And like,
sure.
That's part of what it wasn't cool. You know what I mean? Like, what is that nerd thing? I mean, 2004, we were still in that dead zone of
awkward,
like
the
movies
awkward
like,
years.
Right? Movies that were like this were a risk to say that you liked. You know, like, oh, that's a weird, right? That's a weird, what is that? That looks dumb. And you're like, yeah, but that's okay. Like it is. Yeah. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go on. So now normally I'll look stuff up, I'll read some trivia, I'll do everything. But I thought, you know what? I'm going absolutely blind to this. I'm gonna, I know what it looks like.
First time seeing this?
Never seen it before. So
God, that's amazing! I didn't know that. I'm talking to you like this is time like 12, like it is for me. I didn't know. Oh wow. Okay.
So I think that's why I watched it and I appreciated for what it was. I know some people I know Megan isn't, of Mike and genuine chit chat and everything. She's not so hot on kind of references, especially older references and things. So I don't know how much she would get out of this, but I think because I'm well into the kind of, like, we did World War II month, so I'm very into that kind of era and the 30s and the cinema and the Hollywood and but also I love King Kong. There's references to Godzilla, RKO, Radio City Music Hall, all the kind of things. So you have all these fantastical elements, yet you're referencing real life stuff as well, and things that are even more modern, like George Lucas's THX 1138. There's all these kind of little bitty references. It's like you said, it's very comic booky. There's basically a Savage Land type, X-Men.
Yeah, you're like, where's Doc Savage?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's all this kind of, weird, the Lost World type stuff, the H.G. Wells, or, what's his name? I can't remember. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. What's that?
Oh, Jules Verne.
Yeah, Jules Verne, of course. So yeah, there's a lot of that element, which I kind of like, those classic adventures. There's a bit of John Carter in here as well, and those kind of adventures, maybe a little bit of Robert E. Howard as well, the swashbuckling element. So yeah, there's a lot for me to like, and it comes off the screen, and it's so, if you know what they're referencing, I think it makes it even more joyous for you. Again, it's not so much that it's like, oh, we're ripping something off. We're not, this isn't a Rebel Moon or something like that. Like, this is blatantly a Star Wars script we've slightly rewritten. It's not like that. It's something original that pays homage, respect, and and produces something totally unique but familiar. And I think the familiarity is what helps it a lot. I think if it was completely without its kind of base or grounding, and it was just the flights of fancy and the fantastical elements and the digital elements, I don't think it would work quite as well.
That's all fair. It's all fair. So it's hard for me to not. You talked about what it references. This is not. So I'll get to that thing. There's another movie that is practically perfect in every way that this movie loves, and we'll talk about that in a second. But this is clearly not an origin story. How do you like that? I love origin stories, but I also love that we're meeting them. And this just is the continuing adventures of Space Captain, Sky Captain of tomorrow. I fucking love that this is the continuing adventures of Sky Captain. Like Nero Wolfe. So the cool thing is about Nero Wolfe, the American detective story that is like a derivative of Holmes and Watson. Like when you first meet Archie and Nero, they talk about previous cases. Like the first book, Fer-de-Lance, they're talking about stuff that already happened.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas with Holmes and Watson, they meet. Right. Holmes and Watson meet. Nero Wolfe, they're like, nah, you never know how they meet.
Yeah.
And because Nero Wolfe, they don't age. So as each decade changes, the war that Archie served in changed. So he's like, he was a major in World War II, and then he was in Korea, and then he was in Vietnam, like as they go. So it's very clever. So they never age, and everything happens all at once, all at a timey-wimey. And that's what I feel about the Sky Captain. So like do you think, so you like that it's not an origin story? You're okay with that?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, isn't it? That's supposed to be like the 6th or 7th entry, even though it's only one film and, no other ones were made. But you're meant to like go, oh, it's just another thing. I think in this day and age, especially with superhero movies, we don't need to see origin stories again and again and again, especially Superman, especially Batman, especially Spider-Man. I think you don't need to tell people. Again, the comics did it in 3 panels or less, or they did it with a very brief blurb. You don't need to know anymore.
Brief blurb, Stanley brief. I challenge you to a duel. There's no
maybe not so brief. Not,
but in less than a page.
They got briefer as time went on, I think, in comic book history. But yes, a Chris Claremont blurb would probably have been even longer. But I agree with you. I think just get on. I like a film that doesn't, don't get me wrong, set up everything, set up the characters, but there's so many films now. I think Mike was talking about it. We did another Disney discussions the other day, and we talked about Sherlock Holmes as well. And we were talking about how many films now have 3 hours in length when they don't need to be. There's a reason you hire an editor. You go, don't really need that scene. All the things we're communicating are in this other scene. We'll keep that and get rid of this one. Fine, do it. Everything does not need to be a 3-hour epic. And again, if anything, their attention spans are dwindling. So why are you making films longer? Make them, a reasonable amount, hour and a half, 2 hours, done. Maybe a little more, 2 hours 10. We don't need to fill up theaters.
2 hours 10 gives you the 10-minute credits at the end. Right?
Exactly.
That's what I'm for. Yeah, right.
That'll do. But yeah, and again, like it used to be like, you're a big fan of Roger Corman. Like he would specifically have them be an hour and a half because he saved buying another film reel. Like it saved him money. So
he would actually, some things are cut from films. Some I'm going to do air quotes. People can't see. Some of his films don't make sense because of his editing. Some of his films just don't make sense because he's Roger Corman. But magnificent bastard that he was, he knew what he was doing, right? This film loves Roger Corman.
And that way he could fit more of the screenings in and make more money because they're showing it more often and people are paying for the tickets. So that makes sense. And I don't know, but that's another conversation for another time. But I'm with you, Tony. I think crack on. Don't waste my time. There's so many like moments in like one of my pet peeves, I would say, is especially in the comic book world and the fantasy world where people are like, you're an alien? That's crazy. Oh, I don't believe in aliens. And you've got an Olympian god stood next to a demon, stood next to a super soldier, stood next to an Atlantean, and you don't believe in aliens. Get the fuck out. Just crack on. Just go, you're an alien? Okay, what are we doing? Right, let's move on.
Where are you from? Which planet? What solar system? I have to ask.
Yeah.
That's the question to ask.
Ask those questions like, oh, do you know the Silver Surfer? Because he's an alien. That's a bit racist.
Seems like
Moving
he's
on.
a bit of a dick. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Not all aliens know each other. All right.
Right.
We don't all look the same.
I don't know the Beyonder. I'm sorry.
But that's one of my pet peeves. Like, just get on with it. Don't have the that's one of my things where it's like obviously in the real world, yeah, we would doubt things. Maybe if it was the first ever alien you meet, if it is Superman, fair enough. I don't mind that because then, but if when you're getting up to like an Infinity War type thing, cut all that bullshit, move it on. And that's what Marvel did really well in those films, in the MCU. They kind of just went, yep, we're all here and we're all superheroes. What's the thing? Oh, it's giant Ultron's attacking. Right, let's crack on. Let's do it. Like, put the focus on that, but then have the little character moments sprinkled throughout. But yeah, that's one of my pet peeves is just get on with it. Like, I know what I'm here for. I've seen a trailer. I've read the reviews. I've read the previews. I know what's going to happen. I know what it's about. Show me that. Don't waste my time.
And I think there needs to be, and I think there's a balance there because you talk about another master of a 90-minute movie that does start slow, that John Carpenter.
Oh.
Nobody spends the first 30 minutes standing around doing nothing like John Carpenter, but you're totally engrossed, right? He is such a slow starter, but it's because he wants you to give a shit about the characters. You need to believe, you want Laurie Strode to be the final girl. You want to talk about aliens and They Live. You want to understand, like, when you get to the big alley fight, which is the greatest 8 minutes in John Carpenter cinema, between David Keith and Roddy Ryder. I love everything about those 8 minutes. But the first half an hour of that movie is them standing around talking. But there's shit happening in the background. The TV's fuzzy. There's headaches. We're learning stuff. And so that is because then nobody knows about aliens. So then when the big reveal for aliens, you're like, holy shit. So that still drops you in. Like, he shows up. You see him, the opening credits, Carpenter score. You get in there. And Carpenter, because he wrote his own music, he allowed that to be part of the storytelling. So again, there's a whole backstory happening, but you don't see him on a train and on a bus and hitchhiking, whatever. He's just getting into town. Here it is.
Again,
shows up.
Carpenter is wonderful at world building, I think. I think that's one of his absolute skills, whether it is The Thing, whether it is Escape from New York, whether it is They Live. He gets you in there. And again, before you know it, the point where the reveal happens, be it The Thing or They Live, and you're like, yeah, I'm in, I'm on board. You don't go, oh, this is totally fucking left field. By that point, even though it is left field, you don't feel it's left field, but it is. Like, it's weird. It's weird, but it doesn't feel weird within the world he's already built.
See, and that's it, because his movies are all 90 minutes, 100 minutes, but he takes a half an hour to do a real first act. And this movie has a real first act. It is a bunch of set pieces, but again, it's still in the middle of it. We don't need to know why his name is Joe. We don't have to get why Frankie's British. We don't have to know, he's British, she's British, Polly's American. Polly says the thing about being embedded with the American volunteers. Well, that's weird. Frankie's obviously British. They're all British, but Dex is American. Like, it's a weird thing that's happening. And that's left for you to decide. We're here. We're setting it. There's totally a backstory, because when he's flying in to fight the giant robots, he sees Polly and he's like, Polly. That's it. Oh my God. Amazing. And this is this guy's fucking first feature film. And I know they spent years and years writing it, but that is such great drop you in. And so the other juxtaposition to a movie that does start a little bit slow, but a movie that this movie loves, which is a comic book film that could have also been in Doc Savage's world, but is based on a comic book that was written by the comic book writer, the fucking Rocketeer.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I love the Rocketeer. But the Rocketeer is an origin story, right? So it's so bananas to me that it's just like this, and so inventive. Dave Stevens is the actor. Although if they wanted to reboot the Rocketeer, there's Dan Stevens sitting around waiting for you to show up and play. Sold
on that.
I mean, seriously. And Billy Campbell is great, but I mean, I feel like Dan Stevens is Cliff, right? You just pull him right out.
Yeah. He's got the chin. He's got the perfect chin. He's got that pulp hero chin.
And see, you just said the two magic words, pulp hero. So what Sky Captain is almost, this is my question, is Sky Captain technically the sequel to the Rocketeer? It's like, this is the same universe. The Rocketeer exists, and because the Rocketeer exists, now Sky Captain exists.
I mean that is definitely a direct influence on this. There's no doubt in my mind. Again, we talked about that a little bit in the latest Disney discussions that will come out probably before this anyway.
That's a Disney film, The Rocketeer.
It
When
is.
Are you guys
It
doing
is.
that?
Well, you'll have to listen.
Oh, okay.
Wink,
I see.
wink.
Wink. Okay. God, I
So
love that movie. I can't wait to hear that.
Please listen to Disney discussions.
Okay.
And that's on Basil the Great Mouse Detective, Sherlock Holmes, and The Rescuers. Really, really good. Lots of fun.
Nice.
Definitely a bit of a weird one. But I enjoyed it. I had a hell of a lot of fun doing it. But no, I agree. I think there is that. Again, that has retro-futurism ideas. You've got, Howard Hughes has made the jetpack, designed it. Brilliant. Terry O'Quinn playing Howard Hughes. Fantastic. I'll save all that for the Disney discussion.
Yeah. I can't wait.
But I love that film. I think there's a lot of, that's his dry run for Captain America, the First Avenger as well.
Joe 100%.
Wonderful. But yes, I think there is something there, because I think when I saw the trailer, I went, "Oh, that's a little bit like the Rocketeer." There's definitely, it's set in the 30s, or it's seemingly.
But is it?
Yeah,
right,
that's the thing.
Just it. So, that's the thing. So the Rocketeer exists in real time, and so in a way that steampunk works. So steampunk sometimes is retro-futurism. So it's still taking place in the 30s, but you have that's what steampunk is. Yeah. But at some point in time, the future is now, so therefore you don't advance the technology. We already have flying robots and shit, so there's no reason to think you need a smartphone. So in 2004, it could have been 2000. There's no
that's
so it could have been 2004. It could have been all of these, all of the 11 people. They're all old. So if they were World War II scientists and it's now, they would be old men.
Yeah, true.
That's just watching it this time for the 12th time. God, I fucking love this movie. All I kept thinking about was oh my God, is this technically a sequel to The Rocketeer without it being that? Is Howard Hughes one of the 11?
Well, speaking of the First Avenger, I had a friend who he loves his science. He finds it really fascinating. He's an actor as well. He's been on the podcast a while ago. And he had an issue with Captain America, the First Avenger, because he was like, they're referencing DNA. That wasn't discovered until years later. And I went, yeah, but this is a parallel Earth. So I was like,
doesn't matter. Yeah.
It doesn't. They discovered DNA earlier, and that's why they're referencing it. It's a different universe.
Let's move on. Yeah.
And he went, oh yeah. It's not. I was like, it's not our Earth. It's never. The Marvel universe is not our Earth, and it never would be. And he's like, oh yeah, never really saw it like that. And I absolutely changed his perspective on it. And he was like, okay, I'm all right with that. I'm okay with this. But he's also right, to a point.
Sure.
But again, it's, timey-wimey, whatever, hand-wavy stuff. That's fine. I have no issue with that. But he had an issue with it because he was very he was grounding it in the real world and the science and the times and all the dates and everything. I was like, he's a skinny guy and now he's a buff guy. That guy's got a red face.
The end. Right.
Move on. Here we go.
Let's move on. Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. There is nothing to say it's absolute. This could be thousands of years in the future, and that's just the way that this particular timeline or universe is diverted, and and those the introduction of how many sci-fi stories are there, whether it's like the butterfly effect, where they get hold of some advanced technology and it spirals off into another alters time for all time. So yeah, absolutely, I could see that, and I think directly influenced by the Rocketeer, but it could be not only spiritual, but I guess there's a theory where it could be.
That's my theory that I made up this time. So I'm just asking you. This is not something I've read. This is just me in my brain saying.
You're making those connections. I think you're reaching a little bit, but I see where it's coming from. I definitely understand the.
It's coming from a place of love as well, because I feel too, Carrie probably was like, what movie needs a sequel? The Rocketeer. What have we been doing? And again, that movie, because Scott and Matt Lloyd and I did it as a hostile takeover on Comics Motion for TV. And so when you guys are going to do it for Disney discussions, it's worthy of discussions. It is one of Timothy Dalton's finest performances. He's making fun of himself, right? I mean, everybody's great. I mean, just that cast alone, Murderer's Row. I mean, Billy Campbell is the weak link in that. He's still great.
Sure. Jennifer Connelly probably hasn't ever been more beautiful than in that film, I think.
When she's playing Betty Page.
Yeah.
And they couldn't do
it.
Not
Betty Page, but not.
In the comics, she is Betty.
She is. Yeah, you're right. You are correct.
She's Jenny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think they were like, this is a kid's film. Can we have Betty Page? Can we get away with Betty Page?
No, yeah.
And not only that, it's a Disney kids film.
Correct.
So they were
So
like,
and I think
maybe
there's
not.
probably some legal rights to the Betty
Sure.
Page.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
still its own thing. But anyway, it's glorious. And Dave, if you get a chance to watch the documentary about Dave Stevens, I couldn't recommend that enough too. But I guess I feel like it's really great. It's called Born to Draw. It's glorious. He was just there's something about love, and again, this what it all comes down to. What he did with the Rocketeer comics, which again, not enough of those, and then what they did with the Rocketeer film. Because when I first saw I didn't read the comics before I saw the movie. I saw the Rocketeer movie. I thought it was a Doc Savage thing. I thought Flash Gordon was going to show.
Well, we had the Phantom come out. We had, the Shadow. There was a lot of that coming around after Batman had proved so popular. So yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense that I believe the same thing. I was like, this was.
And then I found it was a comic. Yeah, and then I went back and read the comics and was like, holy balls, he's amazing. And I feel like Carrie probably felt the same thing. So I think it's okay to wear your influences, and this is coming from a person who's essentially novelizing, my version of fan fiction. However, my books and my editor, I just sent my second book back to the editor today. She said her final notes are, this is such a Jane Austen book and it's nothing like a Jane Austen book. So she gets it. Ooh. Like she's an Austenite. Yeah, that's what I want. Like you see it, the DNA is there. The characters are there. Their names are there. The plot structure is basically there, but it's a whole new story. I've taken these character names and I've made new people. I've put them in new situations, obviously modernized them, changed their ages, whatever, changed their relationship status, changed their sexual orientation, or just acknowledged maybe what was happening in the book, whatever. But so I'm loving the thing that I love while also changing it, making it new.
Exactly.
Modernizing it. And I think that's okay. And I think it's silly what I think the Rocketeer does so beautifully and what Sky Captain does. And the reason I wanted us to talk about it as a B movie is it's also still in that weird space when these kinds of movies, like in 91 was that weird spot right after Batman 89, where it's like, what are we trying to do? The rise of comic booky movies. And then 2004, pre-Dark Knight, pre-Iron Man, pre the new version of superhero movies, there's the spot where it's like, oh, maybe superhero movies are dead, or comic book movies are dead, not superhero movies. And we drop this on you, boom, we drop this fucking beautiful thing right on you. People don't know what to do with it because they're like, well, it's not really original. It's commenting on a thing. And so that's just it too. Now you as a performer, you do Shakespeare. We've talked about Shakespeare. We both love it. It's hundreds and hundreds of years old. But every time you do it, you're breathing new life into it. So what do you make? Is Sky Captain, this is the big question. This is my big preamble. Is Sky Captain actually original?
Ah, okay.
And is that what makes it a B movie? Because B movies are just like, here's another spider, like you mentioned, King Kong and Godzilla. You're like, like one of my favorite Godzilla knockoffs is Gamera. And they made like a million D of those. I don't know if you ever watch any of the Gamera.
I'm aware of Gamera.
They're spectacularly terrible.
Being the protector of children while also being a giant monster.
Correct. And there's a song about him. Cool. Gamera is really neat. Gamera is full of meat. We all love you, Gamera. Love. Anyway, but that's clearly not original. That's clearly Godzilla, that's clearly, but for children.
I think there's a difference between rip-offs and wearing your influences on your sleeve. There's very much a difference.
Right.
I wouldn't say this is a rip-off because it's not like anything. It's strange. It's hard to dissect it without talking about the influence because the influences are so heavy. There's War of the Worlds. There's so much going on there.
You talked about Verne, obviously.
Yeah,
Verne,
absolutely, 100%. There's even like we said, underwater dogfights. There's a lost world there, a lost civilization. There are there's rocket ships. There's a Nazi supervillain. Seemingly Nazi supervillain. Sorry, I should say.
What a turn! Yeah, I know. I love that ending though too. Yeah.
But there's definitely some Indiana Jones in the DNA of this as well. But again, that goes back to the serials and the pulps and those kind of characters. I don't know if it exists without the influences, but I don't think it's entirely. It's strange. I don't think I can answer this question really because they're so intertwined that it's hard to separate them. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's a rip-off of anything. But again, it's almost like there's so many influence, it can't be a rip-off. There's that many ingredients in this big gumbo pot, or this brew, whatever you want to call it, soup, cauldron, that it kind of can't not be original. It's a weird dichotomy to it that almost because it's got so many influences, it produces something original. If it was maybe one or two, then you could probably go, well, maybe, but because there's so many things coming at you, and again, the sequences are so thick and fast, and the shots and everything is so like I was never bored during this. It's always moving. It's always, I think kids, a lot of kids, like even I'm pretty sure I have ADHD. You've got ADHD. I think it would grasp a lot of people with like short attention spans, and that people who love the visual aesthetic. And I think again, us being kind of comic book fans, even though again it's not really referencing any specific comic books, there is a feel to it, and again an aesthetic. But yeah, it's strange. It's hard to dissect it that cleanly and answer that question, but kind of a bit of both, I'm going to say. I think
that's fair. I think it's totally fair. I didn't have a good answer either. And I was like, because, and again, the reason I wanted to ask is because, you, like I said, you play characters. You play characters that have been written hundreds of years ago, and you'll do a revival. And like in theater, they do revivals all the time. And it's like, oh, we're bringing back this or whatever. Like when Alan Cumming, he brought back where he plays the MC, and Liza Minnelli was in the movie.
Sure,
and
yeah, of course.
I can't think of it right now. Anyway, Cabaret. They just did a redo of Cabaret with Alan Cumming, and you're like, of course, Alan Cumming's the lead. He's the MC in Cabaret. Like that's like a role he was born to play, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
I mean, you look 100%, and I'm sure.
I mean, he's in Burlesque, which is a kind of a shit cabaret. Though I do kind of enjoy it in kind of a trashy way.
It knows what it is. Cher knows what movie she's in. Christina Aguilera thinks she's in a different movie.
I think so, yeah.
And Cher read the script and is like,
and actually, speaking of Burlesque, they're about to debut a musical here in Manchester based on Burlesque.
I would see this shit. And you know what? I bet you it'll be a huge hit.
I think it will be.
That should have just been done that way. But I get it, Christina Aguilera, they were trying to make her a movie star, and it's like she's just not. Her voice is extraordinary.
Iconic.
Right?
Iconic.
It's like you hear her sing and you're like, how do you make those sounds? Like the Lady Marmalade song that she and Pink and Maya and I mean, that's like all those voices on one song. You're like, that is almost too perfect. She's amazing. All of that. But that movie's god awful. But Cher's having fun. Alan Cumming knows what he's doing. So right, when he does Cabaret, so it's like you do that, and he's like, well, what's his name? Gray. He won an Oscar for this. Other people have won Tonys for this. What am I going to bring to it? Well, you respect the material. You try to bring your own performance to it. And it's like when you're the next person up, like when a show runs forever, like we just watched the film version of Waitress. So we watched the movie Waitress when it first came out, loved it. Kerry Russell, Nathan Fillion, brilliant. If you've not seen the original movie, it's lovely. And then Sarah Bareilles, one of our favorite singers, she wrote the music for the musical. We've seen the touring edition. We've never seen the original cast, but they filmed with Sarah Bareilles playing the lead. And so we bought the DVD, we bought the video of Sarah Bareilles. So now I've seen the movie, I've listened to the soundtrack, I've seen it live on stage, and then I watched Sarah Bareilles. Every time when she sings Used to Be Mine, stop. I'm a hot mess every time. Doesn't matter. I know it's coming because Sarah Bareilles, who wrote that song, is bringing something different to it, right? Than the person we saw sing it than then. And so I just think it's such a cool thing to say. Well, I'm acknowledging what came before.
Yeah.
I'm acknowledging it, but I'm also breathing fresh life. And I think that's what a good performance is. And these actors in this film, unlike Burlesque, again, Christina Aguilera was the Tara Reid of that movie. She thought she was in a different movie when she was in. But everybody in the Sky Captain knows what they're doing. They're like, we know what this is. They all are bringing their A games. Michael Gambon's just playing Michael Gambon. That's what he does, right? I mean, that's what he brought to his Dumbledore, which is why I dislike his Dumbledore.
Fair enough.
Richard Harris's Dumbledore. Plus, it's Richard fucking Harris. But I mean, like, that's my... But again, they both brought... But think about even that. Two different Dumbledores. Two totally different performances. And he, Michael Gambon couldn't come in and be like, well, I'm just going to do Richard Harris. You want that? Just put Jared in a wig and have him do it. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. I think that was the suggestion at one point as well.
Was it really?
I think, well, maybe. Or before they cast Jude Law, maybe that was the suggestion, maybe. I can't remember.
Oh, no. I would have actually loved for Jared to be young Dumbledore. I'm talking about like in the original movies, when Michael Gambon, when Harris died. I would actually think that would have been the right move. I love Jared Harris. I think, but Jude Law's fine, but Jared Harris he's such a chameleon.
Exactly.
But anyway, all of that to say, this movie is like, again, it's referencing those things that the actors know. Like, you can see they're taking inspiration for something. Like, you talk Nick Fury, there's no doubt that Angelina Jolie was like, oh, fuck, I get to be Nick Fury. Badass. Can I wear an eye patch? I don't know if the eye patch was in the script or not, but she
4 years before we got a Nick Fury, she was Nick Fury.
As a boss. And that's clearly what she is. And those,
absolutely.
When you see the flying things, that's like
it is a flying aircraft carrier. And she's wearing an eye patch. She's in a blue uniform. It's fucking Nick Fury to the max. And I was here for it. I was absolutely
she killed it.
Yeah,
she killed it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and she even spoke to like former British naval officers.
Did she really?
Yeah. And she got some of the slang and kind of worked the kind of naval slang into the script. Like, and she's on screen for maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes at most. And the fact that she was so passionate about the creation, and you were talking about Dave Stevens and the Rocketeer, and again, and like Kevin and Kerry Conran come from that kind of background. Kevin's an artist and he spent years drawing it, designing it, conceptualizing the world. And that, it's not too dissimilar to see that kind of DNA and the mixing of those two things. But absolutely, 100%. There's no doubt in my mind that all of these influences, and again, I'm sure some smart aleck young kid will be like, oh, well, that's just a shit Nick Fury. Or something like that, or they're just ripping off Nick Fury. I was like, no, because there wasn't a Nick Fury. There's a David Hasselhoff, maybe, but it's not the same.
We did have the Hoff.
Yeah, not quite the same. But again, I'm here for it. I like that. I like those influences. So yeah, I think, again, we can't really say it's completely original, but then again, it still kind of is. It's somewhere, it's hard to kind of just, split it down the middle and say it's this or it's that. It's the milieu of all of that influence. But like you were saying, like, there's so many like adaptations and remakes. We complain about reboots and reworkings, again, seeing Batman's origin again and again and again and shit like that, But again, we have, like you said, theatre does it every single day of the week. We do a reinterpretation, a reimagining, a reworking, and again, how many adaptations do we have of Pride and Prejudice? How many adaptations do we have of these classic novels? Yeah. Great Expectations, what have you? And nobody complains. Nobody goes, oh, not again, The Great Expectations. Not again, Pride and Prejudice. No, they're like, oh yeah, that'll be good. And that's a new one. Oh,
right. When I saw that Gillian Anderson was going to play Mrs. Havisham in one of those, and when I was like, here for that. Helena Bonham Carter played Mrs. Havisham. I mean, again, it's like that to me. So it's the same story, but Anne Bancroft played Mrs. Havisham once.
Olivia Colman, I think, was the latest one.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
I mean, think about that. Think what all of them want to do it, and they know they're like, "Oh, I got to level up to what these other brilliant women have done to this role." Because the star of Great Expectations is Miss Havisham. That's the role you want, like Pip, whatever. He's kind of sucks, right? Like that's not the role you want. He's so lame that in the Ethan Hawke version they changed his name to Finn. They're like, no, we're not even gonna do it. But,
the Adventures of Huck Finn now.
Yeah, we're just gonna change. But yeah, no, you're totally right. Olivia Colman, she's amazing. I just watched it. It is true. So it's like, yeah, you retell the story. And so Sky Captain, what I love about this is the reason I think this works as a B movie is because it's expensive. It's not a B movie in the Corman Carpenter.
No.
But it loves those movies, and it wanted to be one of those movies. Jake Johnson's new movie is just out. We watched it. It's out on Hulu here, so maybe it's Disney over there. It's called Self-Reliance. And I heard him talking about it, and he said I have to keep the budget $5 million or under. If I can sell it for $5, if I can make it for $5 million or under, I can make a ton of money, and everybody gets their money back. The Lonely Island produced it, so and Andy Samberg's in it. And it's fun. It's good. It's him and Anna Kendrick, and the cast is huge. And he's like, if I can keep the budget low, but once I get over $5 million, studios get involved, other people. So, and again, listening to Carrie talk to Paul, it's so sad because he wanted that. He wanted that $3 million movie where they had total control. And if $3 million, this would have still made the $50 million that it made with 3, but because they had to spend 7 and it killed the series, right? Because they had an animated series that he worked on. They had toys that they were going to make. Oh, I want a Sky Captain. I want a Frankie doll. Are you fucking kidding me? 100%. He would be standing right here next to my Hulk. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Come on. Who doesn't want
those robots as well? Like the robots are amazing.
Oh,
They're
right. And you
so
could get
cool.
an Astro Boy and have him like flying over the
Yeah.
top because there's a lot of Astro Boy in
Oh,
here
yeah.
too. It's so cool. And so, is this a B movie? Like, what? Because the budget was so big. I mean, you allowed it. You allowed it.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But like, it is a $70 million budget. So does that discount it?
No, I don't think so. I think you can have a B movie feel. I think there are films that would go out of their way to become cult films. Like, let's say Hobo with a Shotgun. Okay, like I love it. Don't get me wrong; it's brilliant. Rutger Hauer is amazing. I really enjoy that film. But it's hard to call it a cult movie when it's designed to already be one. I think the idea is that it's again a cult movie. We don't really get cult movies anymore, really, unfortunately. I guess that we kind of do because things can be lost in streaming and people can find them and things like that. So, very, very rarely, a film can like come back into the social consciousness. Podcasts like this can bring things back as well. But
you are the zeitgeistiest zeitgeist.
Apparently I am. So yeah, there's so many things that keep coming up, like the My Bloody Valentine comic book coming out, which I didn't realize was a thing coming out the same day as the My Bloody Valentine podcast, which you've just had. So we descended into the dark mines of Nova Scotia, and this month we've flown out of them in a warplane, a warbird. So yeah, it's a very interesting month, February, for me and the podcast. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think again, I think it's a cult movie because it made some money, but again, it also has kind of been forgotten. Like that's why Kevin brought out the book, The Art of Tomorrow, which is still available for purchase, I think. And
you can get it straight from Dynamite, and it's on Amazon too. But yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, gorgeous looking book, and I'll leave a link as well for that. And yeah, I think because he brought out the book, because it was falling into obscurity, it was being forgotten, and again, it was this avant-garde technology. They spent years, like you said, they would spend an hour, composing one shot, having it filtered and rendered, and on an old Mac, years before the technology we have available now that's kind of commonplace. They were like, right, we're going to do this. They invented it, and they were doing it, and they were passionate enough that they took the time, and they had some difficulties. Again, studio executives got involved, big fucking surprise, and take over and go, oh, but what about this? Or this is popular, try this. And again, I think like it's interesting that as we age as well, like if you look at something like Grease, that was a callback for the people at the time, the adults at the time, going, oh, the 50s. I remember the 50s. Oh, rose-tinted glasses. They were amazing, looking back. And then we don't really have that. And now when it's kind of our age or older or a bit younger, it might be the 80s or the 90s that we kind of, that's why Stranger Things is so fucking popular, because people are going, I was a kid in the 80s and I respond to that, and you can see that. So the older we get, it's going to be, and there will be, even now we're having like the resurgence of certain fashions and trends and things that we were like that, maybe 10 years ago, people were like, oh, I can't believe you wore that in the 90s. Oh, and now they're wearing it, or the fucking mullet is back. You know what I mean?
Mullet is back.
The mullet
is back with a vengeance, baby.
So it does happen. So I think there's again, I loved it. It sings to me. It might not sing to a lot of people, but I think the concept, the ideas, the things they're playing with, the fun they're having. You could say there was the problematic dragon lady trope in this, because Bailing is in there. She's a villain, she's a femme fatale of Asian descent. You could say, oh, this is a problematic thing. But actually, the reveal at the end is that she's a robot. So it takes that kind of concept, that core idea, or the just the kind of the veneer of it, but underneath they're going, oh no, this is something different. It's not that. It's not what you think that is.
She's not, and the fact that they picked her, is very important too, because again, she's the femme fatale in the crew. They knew what they were doing. They didn't. I mean, that was no joke picking her. I think that was very intentional.
Yeah, that definitely. 100%.
Yeah, she was great, and again, great. She puts on an amazing mime performance in this movie.
Exactly. Physical presence, and again, like you've got to think about what the actors are working with as well. It's
Nothing.
entirely nothing. It's all their imagination and what they've seen, the visuals they've already seen, the ideas, that conceptual art that they've seen. That is what they're signed on for. And again, I think you don't get Jude Law signing on. You don't get him as producer. You don't get Gwyneth Paltrow signing on within minutes of her seeing footage.
Right. Just
within...
the little sizzle reel they made, which was their short film, The World of the News from Tomorrow,
yes,
or whatever.
That's right. Yeah. And again, it's that kind of World's Fair aspect to it as well, like all of that wonderful stuff. And again, my big influences on me were like the Superman animated series, the Batman animated series, and there again, not set in the 30s. Not set in, there is technology, there is a retro-futurism to them. They've got the Art Deco design and stuff, but it's not specifically anything. So this, again, fits into that stuff as well. And I love that. So that, for me, is, it's paying homage to the past, but also, like, breaking new ground technology-wise into the future. And again,
I agree.
For better or for worse. So... And whatever you think of this film, you can't say, if you're like, oh, okay, the characters are a bit thin, they're not very well developed, or we don't spend enough time with them, whatever you want to say, any critiques you may have, it's a fucking gorgeous film to look at.
It is. It really is. And you can see, like, what it reminded me of, too, that I need to watch again, because I watched it one time on a plane. And this is Magic, not Steampunk. That's the difference between the two films. This is Rocketeer, Steampunk, the futurism. But the movie that it reminded me of, like, somebody tried recently to do, and again, bombed, didn't get released in theater. It came out during COVID, was fucking Shadow in the Cloud with Chloe. Cortez. Have you seen that?
I've not, but I've heard about it. It's like the Gremlins thing.
The Gremlin.
Thing? Yeah.
It's like the Twilight Zone, the thing that's on the plane. But it's ridiculous. It's glorious. It knows what it is. Everybody is in. She is great. I mean, like, she's capturing her hit girl magic a little bit in this. Like, she's doing a lot of her own stunts. A lot of her physicality is on full display, which she hasn't done in a while. And I think I get it. She's like, I don't want to necessarily be an action star. She is boss in that movie. But again, it's that whole idea of, let's just do something crazy. Let's make it pretty. Let's make it on a shoestring. Now and again, this movie, I keep coming back to, a $70 million budget. It was supposed to be a shoestring budget, but then other people got involved. And what I think people learned from Sky Captain, that, like, Shadow in the Cloud, what me think about it is they made that movie for nothing. It made its money back. It was on every streaming service. Like, the day it came out, I rented it on Hoopla for free. It's like, it was everywhere, on demand, wherever you get it for $1, everywhere. It's so good. They made their money back hand over fist by just releasing it everywhere, putting it on Tubi. People are like, oh, what's that? Hit Girl, I'll watch that. And then they're like, holy shit, that movie's amazing. So I do think, though, that people learn their lesson from this, right? They learn, like you said, of all the things that you aren't going to have. You don't have Sin City. You don't have the spirit, whether people like that or hate that. I think the spirit is better than people think it is, because I think Samuel L. Jackson is having all the fun in the spirit.
I think I remember it being awful, but
it's terrible.
But I remember liking the actors, not the script or anything else. And I remember a lot of beautiful women being in it. But then I was
100%.
Like,
Frank Miller.
I was like, Frank Miller's directing, so yeah, it's going to have a lot of beautiful women in it.
But Samuel L. Jackson,
all very talented actors as well. Don't get me wrong, very talented.
Everybody's having a good time in that film. But again, you don't get that. But I think, and that bombed as well. But I think people learn their lesson from Sky Captain. And again, I think that they care. And again, it must suck for him, because he was in the vein of Carpenter and Corman. And he was like, they were trying to just make this love letter to film and to art and to all this stuff. And so it makes me sad that it bombed, but I'm glad we're here talking about it, because Dan, I didn't know this was your first time. So let's, I know you said you don't like it like I do. So, I mean, obviously we need
Sure.
What will you watch it again?
I was on the way home. I was thinking, I was like, I do need to watch it again. I think there's so much going on visually, and again, it's not, I don't hate it in any stretch of the way. It was like when we talked about Hudson Hawk. It's not a film I'm like, this is garbage. This needs to go in the bin. It's crap. This is one of those where I'm like your enthusiasm makes me go, actually, did I dislike it as much that no, but I didn't dislike it anyway. But this is why I like having people that are passionate about stuff. Like Andy's very passionately disliked End of Days. Some people very passionately like that
That
film.
was a great show, by the way.
Yeah.
That
Thank
was
you,
worth
thank
it,
you.
though. I
It
loved
was.
that.
It was.
Yeah.
It was a really and he wanted to watch it. And we both wanted to watch it. And again, we didn't hate that film entirely, but it was not good either. So I like having passionate people. I like being passionate. I don't want to shit on things. I don't want to destroy them or tear them apart. And this, I don't. Could I have spent more time with the characters? Yes. Could I maybe have maybe a stronger script, maybe a bit more depth or exploring things? Sure, yeah, in a perfect world. But I do get wonderful visuals, I get wonderful adventure, I get intrigue, action. The whole bit where they go to Nepal was really interesting for me. I really
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, really. And again, that's nice, quiet, interesting character moments. And, it's like the uranium mine. I enjoyed that sequence and the double cross. You've got Omar Dajili, I think his name is, as the kind of the guy who's translating. You've got the guy who knows the stuff, but he's horribly irradiated and he's got all the radiation and growths and cancerous tumors and things.
Right. And he asks Sky Captain to kill him at the end.
Yeah. And he's like, do me one favor, kill me.
I know. That was, again, holy shit. But again, and we don't see if he does. We assume he does.
Yeah. My feeling is like, put this whole guy out in the misery, because it's explained as well that they live longer and that they're religious and that I was like, he's probably been like that for a long time. I think there's some really good moments of comedy, like the electric gate moment with Dax. They're gonna go into Totenkopf. Yeah, his they were finally gonna meet him. I think that's another issue I have, is that I get the idea that we don't have a face to the villain, that he is this, wave of fascism, this destructive fascism that's sweeping the land. I love the flapping airplanes. I love that design.
My God, dude, that
amazing.
Was so cool. Oh,
so good.
Yeah.
And I love the kind of more tentacle based robots. I love the classic kind of wind up robot designs. Wonderful. But yeah, I think for me, I needed a bit more of a villain, or one that communicated.
You know what he needed? You needed Ian McKellen's Richard III, which is the greatest performance of Richard. I don't know. I mean, if everybody's seen, and again, this is why we keep doing theater. Somebody right now is playing Richard III. I mean, I've seen Al Pacino, I've seen Kevin Kline, but once you've seen Ian McKellen's Richard III as a Nazi, have you seen that?
I have, yeah.
Fucking hang it up. That's who you needed.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's who I wanted there.
I went to an audition for a play, and it was about, when they discovered Richard III's body in like a car park.
Yeah.
It was like a comedy show about that. So apparently the Shakespearean version is not very accurate to the real life.
Shocking! You're kidding. Really?
Surprise. So
it's not really a history, folks. It's still a play.
I can usually I'm fairly good at kind of reading scripts and reading between the lines and getting the gist of it. And I absolutely, completely misread this audition, misread the play, misread all of the stuff. And not surprising anybody, but I failed the audition, didn't get the part.
Did not get the job, what I'm hearing.
But luckily, one of my friends did get the part, and I was glad he did, because he made it amazing. And I then, seeing the show, I think it was like Gary Oldman when he saw Edward Scissorhands. He was up for the role of Edward Scissorhands, but he didn't get it. He didn't understand it. He couldn't get behind it. But the second he saw the film, he's like, fucking hell. And it all came to him, and he's like, yes, now I understand. But I couldn't grasp it. I couldn't get it at the time. So that was my kind of moment for that. But I watched that film in preparation, because I was like, I heard it's good. I think there are some quite strong critics of that version, but I enjoyed it. Robert Downey Jr., Annette Bening, I think, is in it. And
Annette Bening's Queen Elizabeth. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and a few other amazing character actors as well. But yeah, I needed a face to the villain. I know we get one at the end. It's Laurence Olivier. I'm glad they didn't use one of his Shakespearean performances for his face. Thank
you. We're not even going to talk about that.
Yeah, I was like, I'm glad they didn't use that particular one where he was playing a Shakespearean role. Yeah, Othello. Yeah, when he shouldn't have been. But that is a sign of the times. But yeah, I think I needed a bit more. That's a rough
watch.
Yeah. I'm probably never going to watch that. To be fair.
I've seen it.
I've
seen it for both of us.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's enough for me. But yeah, I think I needed a bit more. I wanted more time with Frankie, and again, it was very brief. I think Gwyneth Paltrow is fine, and her character is fine. They've got this interesting dynamic where he goes like, "You sabotaged my plane," and I ended up in a slave camp for 6 months, and I was like, "Fucking hell!" I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, you were cheating on me though," and I was kind of like, "Yeah, there's a difference between cheating on somebody and being in a slave camp."
They've got a toxic relationship, Polly.
Oh, absolutely.
And the Scott captain.
And she's very much in that, like, I'm a female reporter and I've got to get my headline.
Everybody is Hildy, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's Hildy from His Girl Friday, which again, I get it. Rosalind Russell.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong.
Is spectacular. And obviously Lois Lane is.
Yeah, it's very. It's very like bringing up Baby as well, the fast talking, oh, well, yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And again, that's there. That whole stuff. I mean, and I personally feel that His Girl Friday is the best romantic comedy of all time. It is the first and best romantic. Again, Cary Grant and Rosalind Russell, if they weren't really making out between sets, between takes, I don't know. That was electric. And they're just great actors too. So it could just be that. But I feel like, they were, and that's, they give her the alliterative name. So it's obviously the Lois Lane, it's your Vicky Vale. It's your, and so of course. I just think it's, and again, it knows what it is.
Yeah.
It has to be that, like it has to be the female reporter.
Yeah,
like that's amazing.
Yeah,
and then
again,
that's
very comic booky as well.
Yeah.
Like the intrepid reporter. I quite like the idea that she's the photo gag that she's saving all of her shots. Was
amazing. What a final line.
Yeah, I love that moment, and I love the moment where Giovanni breaks this electric grid that they have to go past. And he was like,
so great.
And they're like, is it safe? And then he goes, only one way to find out. And they both step on it. And then he goes, no, I meant throw something at it.
It was great. It was really good. The timing was really good. I think it was really, and all of your criticisms are totally fair, Dan, and I'm going to disregard them all. No, I mean, it's, no, I think they're all valid. I just happen to love it. And I think it's okay to love it. And that's the thing. What we do as fans, as not part of toxic fandom, is we can love the thing while being critical of it. Is this the greatest work of steampunk ever made? Probably not.
Yeah.
But do I love it? Absolutely. Am I glad that it exists? I do. It's kind of like it knows its camp. It knows its pulp. And that's why, to me, that is why I personally think The Phantom is better than The Shadow, because Billy Zane knew what movie he was in. Catherine Zeta-Jones, as her friend in the Frankie role, and that, right, shows up. They're chewing up scenery. Kirsty Swanson may not know what movie she's in, but everybody else knows what movies they're in The Phantom. In The Shadow, Alec Baldwin was auditioning for Batman, right? And then you get to Darkman in that. And again, Darkman is part of this Sky Captain Rocketeer universe, because that's not one. That's the Coen brothers.
It's original, base. It was going to be a Shadow film. Couldn't get the rights, so they made their own Shadow, basically.
But Liam, they know what movie they're in. Right, you show up in Darkman, and that thing is banana pants. Like they're not. So I think the reason that to me The Shadow is
pink elephant.
Oh my God, he's amazing in that. What a role! What a performance! I love it. But I think that's where The Shadow falls down, because it was trying too hard. And I think Sky Captain of Tomorrow, everybody's performances are earnest, but they all know what movie they're in, and that's And so like Billy Zane had to show up to work every day and put on that purple suit and be like, okay,
he looked good in it. He looked good in it. He's got the bod for it.
Great. He 100%, and he shows up in Zoolander 2 as Billy Zane, and it's almost like he just walked off the set of The Phantom, and he's like shows up in that. He's like, it's not perfect. But it's in the vein. It's with The Phantom. It's with those other movies, and I just think it's groundbreaking. It's fun. It's 20 years this year, Dan. That's crazy, and I just think it's just. I think The Rocketeer too. The Rocketeer didn't do very well, and it took a long time to find its audience. And I hope us talking about it, Carrie putting out the book, people find it again if they haven't watched it, because it is. This is a phones down movie, people.
Absolutely.
You
blink, and you'll miss everything.
Miss so much stuff. Phones down. For it being a movie with such weird, crazy superhero movie physics, it really does the work.
It does.
When he even open up, right? He uses his harpoon to save her when she's rolling around on the ground. It works. Even when the goddamn underwater dogfight, which is glorious, and when Frankie ejects, the physics of that shouldn't work, but it does. And what is she wearing to get out, Dan? the Rocketeer's rocket pack.
Absolutely, 100%. And she's
Love
got the big dome, the big kind of,
So
space
stupid.
helmet or
Ah,
underwater gear. Love it. I love that she's kind of already in the gear before she goes in.
right before she goes in, she knows what's happening.
She just pops the
'cause
helmet
you think she's gonna, you think she's gonna sacrifice herself for Joe, but she's not.
No.
And I love it's just great. And I want a prequel, I want a sequel. This is the thing that is rife for like all because Dynamite owns it now, like because they put Carrie's book out. They put Carrie's book out.
Right.
So the dream is zeitgeisted up, Dan, that we get the sequel as a comic book. That's what we need.
Yeah. At the bare minimum, I think a comic book. Like, how many comic books do I cover on the patronage on Patreon that are, most of them, a lot of them are pure shite, and some of them are really good. There's no middle ground really for these. But if they're, set in a movie universe or, a video game universe or a TV universe, I'm going to try and read them and see what happens. But
I'm here for it.
I agree with you. If we don't get an animated series, or a sequel or whatever, a reinterpretation, a reboot, remake set in the universe, that would be disappointing. But the bare minimum, you can do a comic book easy. Yeah,
because I think, and you don't even need to recap. Like, you don't even need yes, if Jude Law wants to come back and Angelina, they all want to come back, great. But you don't even need, because again, that's the point of the pulpy thing. It's just a different person. You just hire all new actors. You just drop them in, and it's a sequel or a prequel, and it doesn't matter because that's the point.
And if anything, it's probably cheaper now to make. Because
100%.
The technology is more advanced and it's easier to use, and you can, do more things with it. You can manipulate it more than it ever has been. So if anything, it will be cheaper and easier to make than the previous one was.
Yeah, Brolin and Rourke didn't show up on set together for Game to Kill For.
Yeah,
but there's a scene where one of them's carrying the other one, and they were not at, like, Brolin showed up, shot his scenes, because Brolin plays Dwight in that one, right? Different Dwights, because that's comic book accurate. Jude Law and Brolin, right? So Brolin shows up, he's shooting the scenes, and he's doing his stuff, and he says to Robert, he's like, "Well, when's Mickey getting?" And he's like, "I already did that.
We filmed it. We've done it."
He's like, "What?" Yeah. He's like, I'm reading the script. We're in here together." He's like, "We're fine."
He's doing Spy Kids. See you later.
Yeah, amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Tony, we
got to be done.
We are running out of time very shortly. So is there anything you'd like to say? Because I do have some listener comments.
I would love to hear those. I just appreciate you appreciating art. The thing about Spider-Dan and the Secret Boars is your love things. I know Chris gives you a lot of wank, as Chris would say, because you give them some shit to watch, and they would hate this, by the way. And this cuts in. This is 2004. We could request that they watch.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And Chris would call this is utter wank, and he would send it to Alderon. But I say, what I love about your show is, regardless of what it is, you respect art for what it is, and you let us come on and wax poetic about the things we love, or in Andy's case, the things we hate. And I love that platform for Andy too. So this is just great. I just didn't need an excuse to watch it again, but this was the one, and I will not. And this is probably, like I said, my 12th time watching or something. It's been like 10 years.
Well, you'll have to thank your fellow patrons for picking it.
Thank you. Right, because they voted. That's right.
Yeah,
thank you all. So let's hear listener comments. I'm ready.
Yes. So someone you mentioned earlier in this podcast, Scott Weatherly. So that's at Scott Weatherly on Twitter. He says, "I really enjoy this movie. The designs are amazing. The use of a CG generated world was ahead of its time and has a really good score." Yes, I didn't mention the score. I think it's phenomenal. I think it really is. It captures everything I would want to capture in that kind of 30s, 40s, aspect, the pulp hero-ness, all of that. Just wonderful score. I absolutely love it. And I heard that. I did hear a little bit of it before I watched it, and I was already sold on the score. I was like, I'm in. If that's what the score is, wonderful score. So one geeky nerd on Instagram, she says, "I saw it so long ago. I remember being super excited because 1, Jude Law, and 2, I love the steampunk aesthetic. But I remember being disappointed, although I do not remember why anymore. I can't even remember the plot."
That's fun. That's fair.
It's a pretty thin plot. I'll give it that. So it's probably not.
You said that as a positive, though. It's not.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because it's basically to hang the action sequences on and the visual effects. Don't get me wrong. But if you are looking for a plot heavy film, this is not
it.
the one you're
No.
looking for. If you're looking for stunning visuals, that's the one you want. So, Tony, thank you very much for introducing me to this. Thank you for the patrons for picking it. And I'm sure we'll be talking about something again very, very soon. Alien Month, I've almost finalized pretty much, and Tony's going to be back with us as well for that.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Maybe sooner or later, but definitely for Alien Month at the earliest, I think. And yes, it's going to be a lot of fun. But where can people find you and your wonderful, wonderful writing that is heavily influenced by other things as well, much like Sky Captain?
Yes. So AR Farina is my one-stop shop, arfarina.com. You get links to the podcasts that I'm on. If you go to the podcast page, my wife designed my website, and that's why it looks so awesome. But like, you'll see Spider Dan's logo there, and you can click on it, and you'll hear me on different episodes of Spider Dan Secret Boars. I've been on, if I'm on Kyle's show, The Night Shift, or wherever I am, I'm around my own show. And it comes out like today that we're recording, Dan, is the 4th anniversary of my first of I Kill Giants. Yes, today, 4 years ago today, was my first appearance on a podcast, because I had been on Mike's and I had been on the guys. But this is my first solo show, the debut of Indie Comic Spotlight 4 years ago today. Me, Chris, and Dave doing Joe Kelly's epic I'm Not Crying, You're Crying masterpiece, I Kill Giants. So you've got
the 1000th episode coming
up soon. Yep. Comics in Motion will be hitting 1,000. You are obviously part of the family there.
I am.
Clearly, you are, and you've got your own show. You and Max have a show coming up.
Yes, we do. We did. Me and Tonya did She-Hulk as well. We did
that's right. So and you obviously show up on all this stuff. So So anyway, AR Farina is the place to go. But I'm on podcast. My books, you can click buy there, and it'll take you to wherever. You can get it from Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or you can go to bookshop.org or wherever, digital, whatever. And so today is also the day, big day. Today is also the day I submitted back to my publisher the final draft of the final edits for book 2. So I'll get big day. So I'll get a publication on that. It should be about 6 to 7 months from now. So sometime late summer, early fall, you can get your hands on that other Dashwood Girl. And you are in the thank yous, in the acknowledgements, because I would send you messages and say, like, Dan, how do you say this? Because it takes place in England. And you'd be like, not like that.
Yeah, that's weird. You don't say that.
Yeah, that's weird. Don't say that. Yeah. So anyway, that was that. So I appreciate that. Thank you for helping me. So you actually already kind of know what happens, because you were kind of along with the book. But so that's it. So that's me. Thank you. And I'm here on Spider Dan and the Secret Boars talking about Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow.
You are. You certainly are. And it's been a blast. I've really enjoyed this one. I had a great time. It's been a very long week of many podcasts I've recorded this week in the last few days. One a day for 4 days. But I've really enjoyed this, and this is another wonderful addition to all of the ones I've done. So yes, really, really fun. As always, you can find me at spiderdanandthesecretballs.com. Always use the hashtag #PrepareForPrattle when you interact with us, and please subscribe to the Pop Culture Collective newsletter to find out what myself, Comics in Motion, and all the other related podcasts are up to week by week. I would like to thank my patrons, including Tony Farina, I Am Jack's Musing, Simon Cotton, Paul Mellon, Mike Burton, Angry Andy, Tonya Todd, Math, Scott Hodgson, Rhea Kerrigan, and Sarah Coyne, our latest patron. I love it. Thank you, guys. This list is growing, and I love that it's getting longer, and I'm getting more and more out of breath when I say it. Brilliant. Thank you for your continuing donations. It is very much appreciated and helps Prattle World keep on turning. And if you ever find yourself in a position to help the podcast, please consider it. Thank you again, Tony, and I'm going to give you permission to take off. Thank you again. You have been an excellent co-pilot on this podcast.